and welcome to my channel. How are you doing today? My name is Lynn, and today I'll be making these 3 cards. As you can see, they are very similar in design, but I'll be using some different products that actually give you the same geometric pattern, but in different styles. So we have a set of 4 layering stencils. We have a glimmer plate. Those 2 were released with the Sealed by Spellbinders release earlier this month, and they have been designed to coordinate with each other. And then I also found this embossing folder that actually has the exact same design, but it was released previously with the Be Bold collection. So while not exactly designed to coordinate or work with the stencils, it still gives you just a different way to get the same pattern. So without further ado, let's make these cards. I'm going to start off with the stencil. And one thing that I didn't realize as I was making this, but realized as I was putting my stencils away, is that the stencils actually are numbered. So you'll see me in a little bit struggle to orient the stencils because of course with any stencil you can flip it over and kind of get the mirror of the design, and so that is always an option. But when you have layered stencils like these, you want to make sure that all of your stencils are facing the correct way, so that as you stencil in each layer, everything's going to line up. So I'm using my Make Art Station, which is perfect for this because you can use the magnets that come with it to hold your stencil down. And I've got, besides my card panel under the stencil, I do also have just a liner sheet. And so that way I can keep my Make Art Station nice and tidy, especially since I'll probably just stencil right over the edge of the stencil. It's a nice size because it does completely go beyond your full A2 card panel, which is what I have underneath here. And I did also, as I was lining up my stencil, I did also use the grid lines on my Make Art Station to line it up. That way, as I swap out each layer of the different designs, I know, roughly how to line that up and where to line it up. You can always tell by the pattern. Some patterns are a little bit more obvious than others, but I find it easier to just make note of which grid lines I'm using to line up with. And so once you have all of that set up, then it's just a matter of deciding on your colors. And I have this set of 4 Hero Arts ink cubes. I think it was actually sold as a set of 4 because the colors are a nice ombre. And I'm starting with I think the lightest color and then working my way darker. And this lovely, it's called Geometric Optical, is the name of the pattern. And you can mix and match colors too. You don't have to stick to one color family, but I thought it would be interesting to use basically the same color family, but just go from light to dark. So you have these first 2 stencils give you sort of that boxed in those edges that surround the circle. And this stencil, this one in particular, I think would be really useful because it's just polka dots basically. So you could use this stencil just by itself, and I think that would give you a really nice polka dot design. And so that could be a fun one that's standalone. And that combined with the other 3 in this set of 4 stencils adds a little something to the pattern as well. So I think that's really fun that they've separated this as its own stencil, because then you can use it with the rest or use it standalone. Because I think it is a large enough pattern that it could be used on its own. And then the last stencil in the set is again, it's just completes the image really, because there's a portion of this that has and the reason why I took everything off is actually because with this last stencil, I'm going to do a little bit of heat embossing. So I wanted to make sure that everything was clean, everything was dry. There was actually some time that I just let that panel dry. I'm using dye inks, which dry pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry too much about it. But I still brushed on some baby powder. You can use any anti-static powder, and hopefully that's just going to reduce some of the clinginess on this paper, and that way my embossing powder only sticks to where I apply ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same sort of domed sponge dauber that I have been using to apply the sort of the teal colored inks, but instead of using a color ink, I'm using clear Versamark ink. And as I'm applying this through the little stenciled openings, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a twisting motion to really get that ink in there, because it can be hard to tell since it is a clear ink and so much of the panel is covered by the plastic stencil. So it's really hard to tell if you've got ink there or not. But thankfully, I got pretty decent coverage, as you can see here. And I don't think I did a very good job of brushing on my my baby powder, because I'm getting a lot of that embossing powder is sticking to other areas of my card. So what I'll end up doing is tapping as much of that excess powder off as possible. And I do also take a little, just like a fine paintbrush, and brush some of it off as well. But then at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about it being super, this being a little bit more of a distressed look. So I actually left some of those gold flecks in, even outside of where I inked it. And so I thought this would make for a really interesting touch to add that little bit of gold to this design. And I brushed a little bit too aggressively or a little too closely on some of those. So thankfully with the Versamark ink, it does stay sticky for a good long time. So if you accidentally, graze against it and brush a little bit of that powder off, you can always usually just pour some powder, embossing powder right over, and it should still be sticky enough to grab that powder. And so I'll go ahead and heat emboss this. Now, when you're doing heat embossing, if you are new to it, let your gun heat up, maybe at least 20 seconds, maybe 30 or seconds or longer. Every heat gun is a little bit different, but you want to start off with a gun that's nice and hot, and that way you don't actually, it heat embosses, or it melts the embossing powder a lot faster, and you don't end up applying too much heat to your card, which could start to warp the card. It could even burn your cardstock if you leave it on for too long. So I just found that it's just a lot more, it goes a lot more fast and more consistent. Also, you get a nice kind of melt on your project when your heat gun is nice and warmed up. And because I have that distressed look already with some stray embossing powder, I just decided to run with that and just ink the edges of my panel with some more of that clear Versamark. and I'm just gonna brush off a little bit where it's kind of creeping too far into the center of my card, and just giving it an even more sort of distressed, rough edge, and that'll give me a really fun border in gold as well. And so I'll go ahead and heat emboss this too. So embossing, if you've never done it before, it's just so much fun to see the embossing powder melt, and you get that lovely shine and a little bit of texture at that. So to complete the card, now that I have the panel done, it's going to be really, really simple. So as I mentioned, this started off as an A2 size panel, and I'm using the full panel, so I'm not going to cut this down any. And I'll go ahead and apply this to my card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to use some of the, this is another set of dies that released with the Sealed by Spellbinders collection. And it's really, really fun because it has all of these, they're called squiggles. They're like these abstract shapes, which I think are really, really fun. And you have the flower, you have the leaf, and you kind of have this sort of spiral design as well. And they work out really well because they have these long stems at the end of them. So it's great for this whole this look of having your wax seal kind of right over top of that, as if it was like a little bit of a bouquet of, or a bunch of stems that's held together by the seal. And so in the previous video, I created a lot of different seals using a variety of different methods. And if you're curious to check that video out, I'll leave a link to it in the description box below, because not only did I use wax seals in using similar tools as what you would get if you got the starter kit from Spellbinders. I happen to already have all the tools to do wax seals before Spellbinders released their set. So I didn't buy their starter set, but I did buy some of their some of their seal stamps. But in that video, I made seals from just using a hot glue gun. I used a hot glue gun with wax sticks, which worked really surprisingly well. So that was pretty cool. So if you don't have the wax seal set, then you could maybe play with some of those alternative methods as well. But this particular seal this design is actually from a Crafter's Companion seal stamp that has that beautiful kind of daisy design in the center. So I've used that to finish off my card. And this card doesn't have a sentiment yet, but I thought I would kind of leave it at this stage, and then when I need a card, I can use it for whatever occasion I want, because I feel like with a design that is as simple as this, but as effective as it is, it can be for anything, like a birthday card. It could even be, a sympathy card. So I think that it suits multiple occasions, and I will just kind of keep it without a sentiment until I know how I want to use it. This embossing folder was a great find. I didn't know about this one. This was previously released with the Be Bold collection, and it's called Geoscreen. But if you look at it, it's the exact same pattern as the geometric optical design. So when I got the new release products, I since I did not get the Spellbinders seal stamps, I was shopping for the seal stamps, and anytime I go shopping on Spellbinders, I just look at what else I might like to buy and see if I can maybe get to that free shipping threshold. So I was shopping around and I saw this come up as the embossing folder. Now, I did try to line up, as you can see, the stencil that is part of the geometric optical set of 4 layering stencils, and it does not line up. I tried to get it to line up so that I could effectively do that same gold heat embossing for those small little areas, the little squares and the little diamonds that are part of the design. But it doesn't line up. So this card is going to look similar, but also be a little bit different. So I did ink the borders so that I have that a similar kind of gold embossed border. But because this is heat embossed, some of that ink, it just catches the raised edge, and so you get something of a little bit of a different design. And I didn't talk through it, but I did ink up my embossing folder so that I have that nice letterpress effect of the ink getting pushed into the recessed area of the cardstock. So the embossed area, the raised area, is white, and then the flat area that looks recessed is actually one of the 4 ink cubes that I used on my first card. So that keeps it a little bit, it makes it just look a little bit similar, because my goal with this set of 3 cards is to try to create a similar look so that you can kind of get a sense for how the same pattern can be achieved using different products that basically are the same pattern or the same design. So I'll do the same thing as what I did on my last card by just heat embossing that border. Now, one of those edges, I didn't get too much ink, so I took a second pass at just re-inking it with a little bit more of that clear sticky ink, and heat embossed it again. And that's perfectly okay to do if you want to layer up your heat embossing. You could definitely apply more embossing powder and do multiple passes if you wanted. I would just be really careful of doing that if you're not going for a distressed look, because if you reheat an area that's already been heat embossed, you might melt it, remelt that area, and if it's something that has a lot of fine detail, you might lose some of that sharpness of the design. But because my inky border here is very distressed anyways, I didn't have to pay too much close attention to overheating a previously embossed area. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to use these little squiggles, and the actual name of it is Sealed Squiggles if you're looking for it, and I'll try to link to everything in the description box below. There's actually 4 dies in this set because there's one pattern that I didn't use. I just wanted a set of 3 squiggle sticks, I guess is what I'll call them, and and so I've just chosen my 3 favorite out of the set of 4. And I'm applying the seal with my 3D glue gel from Kalau. And this seal design is one from Spellbinders. And it's nice because it's a sort of like a little floral spray, a little bouquet. And that's really nice because there isn't a sentiment, it's not themed really for any particular holiday or occasion. So I feel like it's a really nice one that you could use for anything. You could use it for weddings, you could use it for a sympathy card, you can use it for birthday cards, you could use it for the holidays. So it's nice and general in that way, and it's really beautiful. So again, I'm not going to put a sentiment on that card either, just to have this in my stash ready to go. So now this one, look at that. This is the Glimmer plate, and it is also the same geometric design. Now, because this Glimmer plate and the set of layering stencils were designed and released as part of the Sealed by Spellbinders collection, they are actually designed to work together. So if you wanted, you could glimmer your panel, as I've done here, and then you can use any combination of the stencils to then stencil into the design and add some additional color to it. So it's really, really nice that they have been designed to work together like that. I'm not going to do that with this card, just so that you can just see the difference of using the embossing folder by itself, using the glimmer plate by itself, and then using the stencils by itself. Now, as I was cutting down this panel though, because I put my card panel on like a little bit crooked, when I was trimming this down, I did take that as an opportunity to kind of straighten up the design. So that's why you saw me cut at weird angles. And I'm trying to, as much as possible, have my designs on all three cards be similar to each other. So what I'll do, because the glimmer look is very crisp and very, it looks like a very refined finish, I don't want to do that same distressed edge. So I thought instead what I'll do is, using the same mirror cardstock, or gold foiled cardstock. Actually, I think this is more of a brassy color, but it's the same color that I've used for my die cutting the squiggles out. And so I've just cut out a panel that is going to be the entire size of my card front. I did gut out the center, and when I gut out the center of my specialty cards that really only like a small border is going to be visible, I like to use a die. That way I can die cut from just some scrap cardstock. I often use my neon colored cardstock because I find neon really hard to work into my card designs. So I have a lot of that left from like multi-packs of solid color cardstock. And so I'll just fill in that center. And that way you get a nice level surface. You don't have like the center portion kind of saggy or anything like that. Now, I was going to use another gold seal, and you can see me auditioning out different seals here. But for whatever reason, to my eye at the moment, this one looked better. And this is actually a Spellbinders seal stamp that actually says, it's similar in terms of it has that floral design in the center, but it actually does say happy birthday on it. So I thought that was really cute. And that particular seal, that specific seal, was actually was made using a hot glue gun and wax seal sticks. So in the same way you would have glue sticks, they have wax seal sticks in that sort of form factor, and you can just use your hot glue gun to create a puddle of wax that you can then sink your seal stamps into. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have a favorite out of these three, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!